Upon delivering a sermon about the rapture and the book of Revelation, a young man approached me, expressing his contemplation on the potential emergence of a figure resembling the Antichrist in the evolving world. He acknowledged the plausibility of such a scenario, recognizing the changing global landscape. While not entirely convinced, he expressed a proactive approach, intending to avoid taking the mark of the beast in case the rapture proved true. This individual believed that others shared a similar mindset, underestimating the challenges and persecution one might face during the Great Tribulation for refusing the mark. In the course of the sermon, I elaborated on the Antichrist's methods, referencing Revelation chapter 13 verse 16-18, and emphasized the severe impact and intensity of the impending Great Tribulation. I underscored that this period would bring unprecedented difficulties, surpassing any calamity in human history. It would involve a profound interaction between the spiritual and natural worlds, with the release of restrained angels, the unbridled wrath of God, and cosmic activity. The four horsemen of the apocalypse and the rise of the false prophet and Antichrist would characterize this unparalleled time. Despite this, I highlighted the tendency in contemporary society to underestimate the severity of the tribulation due to comfort, technological advancements, and the human inclination to perceive current times through a normalcy bias. Quoting Matthew chapter 24 verse 21, I emphasized the certainty of the Great Tribulation according to Jesus. Transitioning to the methods the Antichrist system would employ, I discussed coercion and persecution as the primary means of enforcing the mark. I warned against the misconception of an easy refusal of the mark under real coercion, pointing out the potential consequences of social and economic isolation. The gravity of the situation would challenge individuals who were accustomed to the comforts of daily life. The second method, I explained, would be through deception and persuasion. Highlighting Satan's prowess in deceiving even angels, I emphasized the mark's significance as a declaration of worship to the Antichrist. I quoted Isaiah chapter 42 verse 8 to stress God's intolerance for idolatry and revealed that the core issue with the mark was centered on worship, not merely control or commerce. I cautioned against relying on the assumption of enduring the tribulation unscathed, emphasizing the urgency of seeking the Lord in the present, as the Great Tribulation's events were both imminent and severe. Continuing with the sermon, I delved deeper into the dire circumstances that believers would face during the Great Tribulation. The coercion and persecution would be relentless, with Revelation chapter 13 outlining the economic and societal ramifications of refusing the mark. It became evident that this was not a hypothetical scenario but a real and imminent threat. I urged the congregation to consider the current comforts and freedoms they enjoyed, acknowledging the difficulty of imagining a life where practicing faith could lead to persecution and isolation. However, Revelation chapter 13 painted a vivid picture of a world where saying no to the mark would mean sacrificing the ability to provide for one's family and facing severe consequences. It was crucial to grasp the reality that this decision would come at a high cost, far beyond what many could currently comprehend. Transitioning to the second method, deception and persuasion, I emphasized Satan's history as a master deceiver. The mark of the Antichrist, I explained, was not just a mark of commerce but a symbol of worship and allegiance. Quoting Revelation chapter 14 verse 9-10, I reiterated the severe consequences for those who worshipped the beast and received his mark, underscoring the gravity of idolatry in God's eyes. Despite the bleak circumstances, I brought hope by highlighting the existence of tribulation saints who, despite persecution and coercion, stood firm in their faith, refusing to worship the Antichrist. Revelation chapter 20 verse 4 spoke of those who were beheaded for their allegiance to Jesus, emphasizing their endurance and reward in reigning with Christ for 1,000 years. As the sermon unfolded, I stressed the urgency of seeking the Lord today rather than relying on the presumption of enduring the tribulation unscathed. The unpredictability of the future and the severity of the events to come made it imperative for each individual to cultivate a strong relationship with God in the present. I called for a collective awakening to the realities of the Great Tribulation and the importance of preparing spiritually for the challenges that lay ahead. The sermon served as a sobering reminder that the choices made in the present would have eternal consequences, urging the congregation to heed the call of the Lord without delay. As the sermon pressed forward, I directed the congregation's attention to the prophetic elements outlined in Revelation. The vivid descriptions of cosmic disturbances, angelic interventions, and the profound shifts in the spiritual realm underscored the gravity of the approaching tribulation. It was a time when the ordinary would become extraordinary, and the spiritual battle between good and evil would reach its zenith. Revelation chapter 8, with its depiction of silence in heaven for about half an hour upon the opening of the seventh seal, served as a powerful illustration of the awe-inspiring and unprecedented nature of the events to come. The atmosphere itself would be altered as the world experienced divine judgments and interventions. Addressing the methods of the Antichrist system, I reiterated the importance of understanding that the mark was not merely a physical imprint but a symbol of allegiance and worship. Drawing parallels with historical idolatry, I stressed the seriousness of the choice individuals would face during the Great Tribulation. The consequences outlined in Revelation chapter 14 verse 9-10 were not to be taken lightly. Eternal separation from God awaited those who succumbed to the deceptive allure of the Antichrist. Amidst the grim realities, I interjected a note of hope by emphasizing the resilience of the tribulation saints. These were individuals who, despite the overwhelming challenges, held fast to their faith and refused to compromise their allegiance to Jesus. The imagery of thrones and judgment in Revelation chapter 20 verse 4 conveyed the ultimate victory of these saints, who would reign with Christ for 1,000 years. As the sermon drew to a close, I invited the congregation to reflect on their own spiritual preparedness. The uncertainties of the future and the formidable trials ahead made it imperative for each person to examine their relationship with God. The call to seek the Lord today resonated as an urgent plea, acknowledging the unpredictability of tomorrow and the potential ramifications of procrastination. In the final moments of the sermon, I offered a moment for personal reflection and prayer, encouraging everyone to consider the gravity of the message. The Great Tribulation was not a distant tale but a looming reality, and the choices made today would undoubtedly shape one's destiny in the face of unprecedented challenges.